I never really paid attention to my reflection before because it was just something normal. Something you see every single day without even thinking about it. It was part of my routine, like brushing my teeth, checking my phone, or locking the door before leaving. You look at yourself for a second and move on. Nothing more. But that changed the morning I noticed something small that did not feel right. I was standing in the bathroom, half awake, brushing my teeth, barely focused on anything, when I noticed my reflection blinked just a little too late. It was not something obvious, just a fraction of a second, but enough to make me stop completely and stare at the mirror. I remember standing there, toothbrushes still in my hand, watching my own face like I was seeing it for the first time, trying to understand what I had just seen. My reflection looked normal again, perfectly matching my movements, so I told myself I was just tired and moved on. I forgot about it for a while, but that same evening I caught myself watching the mirror more carefully. This time I was fully awake, paying attention. I blinked slowly on purpose, moved my head from side to side, raised my hand, even leaned closer to the glass, and everything matched perfectly. I laughed at myself, thinking I had imagined it, and went to bed. The next day it happened again, but this time it was different. I was getting ready to leave, fixing my hair, when I raised my hand, and for a brief moment my reflection did not move. Then it followed, just slightly too late. That same feeling came back immediately, that quiet drop in your chest when something feels wrong but you cannot explain why. I stepped closer to the mirror, looking for anything that could explain it. Maybe the glass was uneven, maybe the lighting was strange, maybe I was still not fully awake. But everything looked completely normal. After that, I started paying attention more than I wanted to. Every time I passed a mirror, I looked, not always directly, sometimes just from the corner of my eye. Most of the time, everything was fine, but sometimes there was a delay, not always the same. Sometimes in the eyes, sometimes in the mouth, sometimes in the way the head turned. It was inconsistent, and that made it worse, because I could never prove it to myself. A few days later, I noticed something new. I walked past the hallway mirror without stopping, just a quick glance. But I felt like my reflection kept looking at me for a moment longer than it should have. I stopped immediately and walked back. Of course, everything was normal again. That was when I started feeling uncomfortable in my own apartment. At night, it became worse. The lighting made everything feel slightly off. The shadows were deeper. The room behind me in the mirror looked darker than the actual room. Not by much, just enough to make me notice. I started leaving lights on just to avoid looking into dark reflections. Then one night, I woke up around 3 in the morning and went to the bathroom without turning on the main light. Only the small one above the sink. The room felt colder than usual, quieter than it should have been. When I looked up into the mirror, I froze, because my reflection was already looking at me before I fully lifted my head. It felt like it reacted before I did. I stood there for a few seconds, then slowly raised my hand, and this time it followed perfectly again, like nothing had happened. I did not sleep much that night. Over the next few days, I started testing it more deliberately. I would move suddenly, turn my head quickly, step forward, and then step back, watching closely. Most of the time it matched, but not always. Sometimes there was a delay, small but real. Other times it felt like it anticipated my movements instead of copying them. I started noticing reflections everywhere, not just in mirrors, but in windows at night, in my phone screen when it was turned off, even in the television. A few times, I had the strange feeling that my reflection was not reacting differently, but choosing how to react. That was when I started covering the mirrors. First the bathroom, then the hallway, then every reflective surface I could find. I told myself it was just to calm down, but the truth was, I did not want to see it anymore. For a few days things felt quieter, almost normal, like whatever was happening had stopped. I even started thinking that maybe it really had just been stress or lack of sleep. Then one evening, I forgot to cover the mirror. I went into the bathroom, turned on the light, and at first, everything looked normal. Just me standing there, tired, looking back at myself. Then I moved and my reflection did not. It stayed completely still, staring directly at me. I froze instantly, unable to move, unable to breathe properly, just staring back at it. After a few seconds, it tilted its head slowly. I did not move. Then it smiled. It was not a normal smile. It was too slow, too deliberate, and it did not match anything I felt. After that, it matched me again perfectly, like nothing had happened. I stepped back immediately, hit the wall behind me, turned off the light, and left the bathroom without looking back. The next day, I covered every mirror in my apartment completely. I avoided reflections even outside. I stopped looking at my phone screen when it was dark. I turned my television away so it would not reflect anything. But a feeling did not go away. Sometimes I still catch movement in reflections from the corner of my eye, something slightly too fast or too slow. And lately there is something even worse. Sometimes when I move, I feel like I'm not the one being copied. I feel like I am the one trying to keep up. At first it was just a feeling, something subtle, easy to ignore if I tried hard enough. But then it started happening more often. I would reach for something, and for a split second, it felt like my hand was following a movement that had already happened. I would turn my head and get the strange impression that the motion had already been completed somewhere else before I did it. It is hard to explain, but it felt like I was slightly out of sync with myself. I tried to ignore it, tried to go back to normal, but it kept happening. One evening I caught myself standing in front of a covered mirror, without even realizing how long I had been there. I had not uncovered it, but I was just standing there, staring at the fabric, like I was waiting for something on the other side. That scared me more than anything that had happened before. Not the reflection, not the delay, but the fact that I felt drawn to it, like something wanted me to look again. I stepped back immediately and left the room. That night I had trouble sleeping. Every small sound felt louder. Every shadow in the room felt deeper. I kept thinking about the mirror, about what I had seen, and about that smile. I tried to convince myself it was just my mind, that there was a logical explanation, but the feeling did not go away. At some point I must have fallen asleep, because I remember waking up suddenly in the middle of the night. The room was completely dark, and for a moment I did not know why I had woken up. Then I heard it, a soft sound like fabric moving. I sat up slowly, listening. It came again, quiet but clear, from the direction of the bathroom. My heart started beating faster. I knew exactly what it was, even before I checked the mirror. I stood up and walked slowly toward the bathroom, every step feeling heavier than it should have. I did not turn on the light immediately. I just stood there in the dark, staring at the outline of the doorway. Then I reached for the switch and turned it on. The first thing I noticed was that the mirror was no longer covered. The towel I had used was lying on the floor. I froze in place, staring at it. I was sure I'd covered it. I always did. Slowly, I looked up. My reflection was already looking at me. This time, it did not wait. It did not delay. It did not try to match me. It just stood there, perfectly still, watching. I did not move. Neither did it. Seconds passed, maybe more, I could not tell. Then it slowly raised its hand. I did not. It just lifted it, calmly, like it did not need me anymore. That was the moment something inside me broke. I stepped back immediately, turned off the light, and left the apartment. I did not take anything with me. I did not even lock the door. I have not gone back since. And the worst part is not what. The worst part is what I feel now. Sometimes, when I move, I still get that same feeling, like I am not the one starting the movement, like somehow something already decided what I am about to do, and I am just following it, step by step, without even realizing when I stopped being the original. More content on my channel. Subscribe for more.